Welcome back to another installment of the Shadowhunters universe. So, if you don't know the premise of what I'm doing here, I am reading all of the Shadowhunter books according to the following timeline. And I've already read the first three Mortal Instruments, and after that, it brings me to Red Scrolls of Magic. And this is book one in the Eldest Curses series. We're jumping back and forth. And normally, how I do my series videos is I read a series and then I upload it. I did split the Mortal Instruments in half because we were going to be stopping the Mortal Instruments and jumping into a different series. However, I am not going to just upload a video with just this first book. So this vlog is going to encompass Red Scrolls of Magic and then the Infernal Devices series. So like I said, I have just finished Red Scrolls of Magic. I am giving this one 4 stars. I am absolutely living for Alex and Magnus's relationship in this book. We get to see what was like behind the scenes in Mortal Instruments and kind of what's coming up in the rest of the Mortal Instruments trilogy. I have read all of the Mortal Instruments before, so that those are rereads for me. I've also read Infernal Devices before, but it's been a while since I've read Infernal Devices. And unlike the Mortal Instruments, which I've read probably 4 or 5 times at this point, I've only read Infernal Devices once, so it is not as ingrained in my brain as the Mortal Instruments. We do get more of Alex and Magnus's background. I feel like it's really cute. It starts off with them going on a date in Paris, which I think is just so cute, and I just love it so much. And I like seeing development of their relationship, especially because we know Alex went on a trip. But getting to see like the background of them on that trip is like top notch, what my brain needs in its life. It gives me all the serotonin and dopamine, like, let me tell you. I also like that we get a preview into the start of Helen and Aline's relationship, which is kind of hinted at in some of the other books, but we don't see too much of it. So I do like that we get a little bit of some little spoilery Easter egg dropped hints there. So that was also really, really nice. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. There's a lot of action, so it's been a minute since I've listened to some of this, so much action. Probably because the past few like books with a lot of action in them that I read have been rereads, so I haven't had to like pay too much attention. Like I had to pay attention during this because there's a lot of moving parts in action, which I love. I love fantasy books that draw me in like this, and like I said, I just love the romantic subplot, and I know the Infernal Devices has a bit of a romantic subplot, so I really am looking forward to getting into those next. But otherwise, I do, this isn't my favorite, but like I said, I do getting like the behind the scenes is probably like my favorite part though, just because my brain really thrives on the complete story. Like, don't just mention something and not talk about it. Like, I need a solid 300 pages to discuss this vacation they took on, which Cassandra Clare delivered. So I am very happy with this book. Morning. I've started Clockwork Angel here, and I've read this series before. It's been since 21 since I've read it, and I've only read it the one other time. So it's not as familiar as the Mortal Instruments is to me, but I will say that the writing is for sure better in this series than the first 3 Mortal Instrument books. We're a good way through the book already. I do like the historical aspect. I do tend to like historical books, so historical fantasy is like right up my alley. And we've been introduced to one of my favorite characters in this universe, which I'll just tell you, it's Magnus. I love Magnus so much, so I'm really glad that he's been introduced because he's been around for a long time. We've also been introduced to some other characters that have been around for a while, but I do like the backstory with Will and Gabriel, and how it's kind of ironic that Alec and Jace are who they are and how they're friends when there's like some tension going on here between those two back in the day. But like, you can see how old these family lines are, which they'll all be legacies. you know, it'd be like thinking about emissions. You're thinking, oh wow, that's a legacy kid. These people are legacies, okay? That's where we're at right now. I'm really enjoying it. I am gonna try to finish the rest of this book today. It's like 40-something%, I think, but we're on 274, and it's going really well. I mean, just like in The Mortal Instruments, my favorite character is Will, probably. That's because I appreciate his sarcastic asshole self. So, we're gonna keep reading. I have finished Clockwork Angel. It is also very hot, like, it's in the hundreds, so we're gonna be running the AC. Sorry, but, like, I'm gonna die otherwise. But we have finished Clockwork Angel. I read, like, this much of it yesterday. Actually, that was pretty close to where I grabbed, to where I started yesterday. So, we have finished 5 stars. We meet some of my favorite characters from the Mortal Instruments. So we meet Magnus, and also there's a church reference. And I'm not talking about, you know, the institute being disguised as a church. I'm talking about the cat church. So we meet some of my favorite characters from the Mortal Instruments. We also meet Will, and he's one of my favorite characters. Like, Tessa and Jem can be, like, off on the side. They're not my favorite, but Will is one of my favorite characters because he reminds me so much of Jace. And I just loved it so much. But we're kind of setting up for the big showdown. And I've read this series before. It's been a few years. I've only ever read it once. So a lot of it, so it comes back as I read it. But, like, unlike with the Mortal Instruments where I know things of what's going to happen, I don't necessarily remember what's going to happen until I start reading it. And then I go, oh, yeah, that's what happened. But this is going really well. We're really setting up for the big showdown. Like, I know it's gonna ramp up in the next 2 books, but we've had some betrayals, we've had some findings out, it's the beginning of a little bit of a love triangle. I feel, you know, the beginnings of it has started here, but I'm looking forward to book 2. We've moved on in the Infernal Devices trilogy. I have just finished Clockwork Prince. It did take me about 2 weeks to read it, admittedly, because I was in the middle of doing other stuff, but really well. This is technically a reread for me. However, I learned about 150 pages into this 500-page book that I'm like, I actually don't remember anything after this point whatsoever that happens. Like, I know the general gist of the series, but I don't remember anything else that happens. Also, it's my hair right now. I just did a keratin treatment on it, so it's a little wet yet and all over the place, because that's how it be after I do the keratin on it. We have finished Clockwork Prince. I really, really enjoyed my read of this. I don't really remember enjoying it as much as I did this time as when I read it the first time. I really did enjoy the tense and angst, especially towards the end of the book. And that cliffhanger it ends on, not like a massive cliffhanger, but like enough of a cliffhanger that, like, I really want to pick up the next one soon. However, I do have another book I need to read before I can pick up Clockwork Princess, but I have it on my shelf over there, and it looks like it's a little bit thicker than this one, so looking forward to that. But like I said, I really did enjoy this. I didn't remember most of it, and I do like, I'm not like, I shouldn't say I'm not a huge fan of love triangles. I don't mind love triangles. And the love triangle between Tessa, Jem, and Will is, like, I think it's really good in this. Personally, I'm leaning more towards Will than Jem, but I suppose we can go with Jem for now. It was really enjoyable. Like, there was a lot of tense things. We get some backstory more into, like, Will and Jem in this one, I feel like. So I did enjoy that aspect of it. Also, a bit more battles than I remember. Like, I do remember the one battle kind of that happens with the clockwork creatures, but I thought that was in the last book and it was in this book. I mean, maybe there's probably more, but like, my brain must have just lumped all of it together. This is only my second time reading this one, and it's been a few years. But like I said, enjoyable. Looking forward to the next one. This is a game of me trying to keep this balance because my phone is plugged in because it's going to die otherwise. We have not checked in for a while, guys. I started Clockwork Princess. It's really good. I don't really, as I'm reading this, I'm realizing I pretty much remember none of the plot except for some character deaths. But like, I'm a good chunk through now. Like, I've been reading it in like 100-page chunks where I just like sit down for a night and I'm like, you know what, we're gonna read 100 pages, and I've just been like going through it and reading like 100 pages at a time, and we're at like page 3 or 4, which brings us to the top of 14. I'm kind of thinking that I may try to read this even longer tomorrow because like it is going so well. And I'll tell you, I started a timer for a different video when I started this book. I've read 304 pages in 3 hours and 14 minutes. There's that. Like, that would be tomorrow's chunk right there, would be up 400. It's about 5 chapters, roughly. So each chapter is roughly 20 pages, I guess. There's so many details in here I just didn't remember at all, like, whatsoever. And this one, I think it's this, I've said this before, but like, this is the chunkiest one in the series, I feel. I mean, I could probably verify that by page number, but whatever. It's reading so much faster than the other two. Like, the other two were fast-paced, but, like, this one seems even faster, if you know what I mean. But, I honestly don't want to put this one down, but, like, I also need to go to bed, because, like, I gotta work in the morning, and I gotta work far away tomorrow, and I'm really thinking that this is gonna be a done over the weekend thing, because even if I only do 100 pages tomorrow night after work, and then I mean, like, by the time Saturday rolls around, I mean, I might as well just finish off the last 100 and, well, I mean, it's gonna be more than that, I guess. I mean, the last 70 pages. I might as well just read the last 170 pages Saturday, It's just going so well so far. I have finished Clockwork Princess, and I know I didn't update very much during it. I know. Admittedly, I did update it even less during Clockwork Prince. I'm gonna be completely honest, having reread the entire series and actually knowing what happens, because like I forgot everything very much after the first book. I think Clockwork Prince is definitely a filler book. Like, yeah, it is. But, it does that thing in a lot of what I feel like is a very common in trilogies, where the second book is more of just like a bridge between the two. Clockwork Princess, I think, is my favorite one in the series. This one was amazing. And I'm going to be completely honest, it took me under 6 hours to read this. So, and I know that because this is going to be in another vlog, guys. I wholeheartedly love this book. And even though I knew one of the plot twists were coming, it was still gut-wrenching. And it doesn't happen until the very end. It's like in chapter 21, I had to think. I was going to say 29, but there's not 29 chapters. It's in 21, guys. And it's still gut-wrenching. And I will say, overall, having both reread this series and remembering it now, and I've read The Mortal Instruments several times, I feel like, even if you take where The Mortal Instruments was originally supposed to be a trilogy, it's supposed to stop after City of Glass, it does not wrap up well, and there's a lot of open ending, which I can see why, because it does go into another 3 books there, which is completely fine. But even when I go back and think about how book 6 ends, Heavenly Fire, it doesn't seem to wrap up as well. This one wraps up very well. Like, the rest of them, it wraps up very quickly. However, I will say, there was, like, I would say a good 70 pages where we're just, like, wrapping up loose ends in this one. And I really enjoyed that, because I feel like it really made the full circle. I will say, I wish there was a little bit more of Will and Tessa's relationship, just because I love them. And it seemed like they were very sweet. Because it kind of does go through, like, a synopsis of it, but it's very sweet, and I did love the ending, and I loved how it actually drew out the ending a little bit more to give it more of a completeness feel. Like, I don't feel like we would need another book or another few chapters to really round out the story. I feel like Cassandra Clare did a very great job of rounding out this series with this book, and like I said, this is probably my favorite one in this series. After reading this, it makes me super excited to then jump back in and go through the next 3 Mortal Instruments, which will be the next video in this series here, where we read the last 3, and I can't remember if it's going to include the next one in the Magnus Baines trilogy, or not trilogy, I guess there's only 2 books, right? I don't know, let me take a gander. No, it won't. No, the next one will not. That will be in a separate video, because I've broken everything into chunks for this video. I've thought ahead, guys, for once in my life. I've have chunks, but yeah, think about it. We've now read 7 books in this series, and there's at least 20 to go. But I feel like I said, like, overall, having read this series again, I would rate this higher than The Mortal Instruments, and that's saying a lot considering I've read The Mortal Instruments like 5 times because it's one of my favorite series of all times. I would rate this one higher. I really did enjoy it, and I enjoyed the historical aspect. It gives it more of a realistic feel with the Shadowhunters, because a thought that popped into my head when I was reading on Saturday was, even in, like, The Mortal Instruments, they seem very outdated, is what I'm going to say. And the fact that, like, there's the scene that comes to mind is in, like, the first book, City of Bones, and it's in one of the first few chapters where Clary and Jace are going through New York, and she asks him for his phone. He goes, "This isn't a phone, it's a sensor." And it's like, why don't you have a phone on you? Is this like, is there like something like Percy Jackson going on? You know, like in Percy Jackson, a lot of the demigods don't have phones because it transmits their signal, and then the monsters can find them. Is this what's going on with the Shadowhunters? Why don't you have a phone? Like, they just seem very outdated in that sense, and even when they go to, like, Idris, it just seems like we don't have cars here, we're going to travel by horse or foot, and it just seems outdated. So I feel like this one, it makes a lot of sense because it's the 1800s or early 1900s time frame. I feel like this makes sense for them to be like that. The Mortal Instruments is supposed to be set more in modern day, and I kind of sit there and I stare at it, and I was like, that's an interesting food for thought. But, again, let me just wrap this up. I've tried to wrap this up several times, and I got off track. I like this series better than The Mortal Instruments decided. This last book, 6 stars, it's going on the list. It's going on the list for best 10 books I've read this year, guaranteed.